Um, Today I will be talking on meditation and the enduring effects of plasticity. We have been carrying out the meditation studies, especially the plasticity point of view, since quite so many years. And so, just a simple definition of meditation from a neuroscience perspective. Like these are quite apt for us actually, because we know that meditation is an intense sensory, cognitive, and emotional experience, and that ultimately enhance the psychological capabilities, the mental capabilities. So, in that perspective, these definitions are quite apt. So, if you know that, like meditative practices have been developed in ancient India more than thousands of years ago as a tool to aid in the spiritual journey. And it is thought that meditation or yogic practices helps in self-discovery, self-development, and ultimately the self-realization. So we have a tool that helps us to evolve. There is a total evolution of individual consciousness. Now in the contemporary world, neuroscientists especially, we try to understand the brain, the immense capabilities of the brain functions and even the mental functions, using meditation as a tool. So that's what we are trying to understand, whether meditation induces various aspects of changes in brain functions, and that can be picked up through various sensitive measures. And so one of the, being a neurophysiologist, I try to understand meditation through neuroplasticity. As the previous speakers have already discussed, neuroplasticity, the phenomenon of neuroplasticity exists in the brain throughout life. It is not only during development, even in the adult brains have the enduring capacities of neuroplasticity. And with this neuroplasticity, as the speakers have already said, brain has the capability to reorganize its circuitry, and also its strategies, its thought processes, behavioral changes. So we call this meditation from a biological point of view. It is an experience dependent plasticity. It is an example of experience dependent plasticity. Like, for example, learning is an experience dependent plasticity. Learning enhances our memory and memory processes. So learning is an example of experience dependent plasticity. Meditation is an experience dependent plasticity. So now, especially over the past 30 years, there have been a surge to, scientifically to understand the neural correlates of meditation, and that was possible mainly because of various introduction of various techniques, including the imaging techniques. And these things are, almost it is now certain that meditation enhances our attention, awareness, various aspects of awareness, that is mind-body awareness, mindfulness, attention, concentration, cognition, self-awareness, social awareness. So it enhances awareness, and also it regulates self. You can see that regulations, emotion regulation, self-regulation, stress regulation, enhances resilience, enhances equanimity, and so on. So you see that different strata, different levels, mental as well as physical level, you can see that meditation influence. And these are not happening at the same time. You can see that this is a progressive change that is occurring. So when you start meditating, you can see that you become, it promotes, initially it promotes relaxation, enhances positive effect, decreases negative effect. So these are the things first you experience. And there we say that it enhances well-being. So in this context, it is the well-being, individual well-being. Okay. That is, we are being very happy because we have, we are relaxed. There is a stress reduction, there is a reduction of all the negative effects, and there is an enhancement of positive effect. It's a state of being happiness. But as you go through the journey, through meditation, that enhances the transformation, the self-discovery, the self-development. You can see that the well-being is totally in a different context we will be discussing. Okay, that is in development of various higher mental virtues like well-being, compassion, generosity, altruism, and so on. So you can experience various higher mental faculties. So there we talk the term of well-being in a different context. Okay, so these studies have been proven beyond doubt that all these are happening in the and now coming to the neural perspective, so what is happening to the brain? As one of the speaker has mentioned that the scientific research have been initiated by 1925, actually by Swami Kuvelananda. But most of the research studies, research has been carrying out, looking at various other levels, like what is the effect of yoga on respiration, on cardiovascular functions. But on brain function, it is mainly by 1960s. 1961, he published the paper by Professor B.K. Anand. He is from Delhi. He is a professor of physiology from All India Institute of Medical Sciences. What he did, he just recorded the brain activity through the electrodes from Ramananda Yogi. And what he has observed is it enhances alpha waves and no alpha block. No alpha block means alpha waves are indices of relaxation, mental relaxation. And so when you are mentally active now, even if you are eyes closed, you are sitting in an eyes closed, relaxed nature posture. Suppose if you are given some arithmetic, you are doing some mental arithmetic, there is an alpha block. Whereas in meditators, we are not seeing this alpha block. That is one thing. Second, the further studies have shown that it is not only usually alpha, even in any normal individual, you can record alpha when you are relaxing, eyes closed, relaxed state from the occipital region of the head. Okay. Whereas from the meditators, we can even record from the frontal regions, because these are the seats of higher activities, higher mental, cognitive activities are happening. But still there you can see the relaxed, like alpha. So this is the beginning of our understanding about the neural correlates of meditation.
Could you please repeat what do you mean by an alpha block?
Alpha block, see, for example, alpha is an index of relaxation. So when you are sitting in a eyes closed posture and relaxing, you can record alpha. Whereas even in the same state, now I am giving you some mathematics, some arithmetics, So that means you are mentally active now. So when that is, you are not relaxing anymore. When you are mentally active, alpha disappears. Okay, brain activity become very desynchronized state.
What you're saying is that even if with your eyes closed, if you're thinking something, then you don't have alpha waves.
Yes, yeah, in the normal human being. Whereas in the meditators, this alpha block is not happening. Alpha is there because alpha is an index of now meditation proficiency.
So meditators while meditating do not have alpha, or even if
No. I think you are getting confused. In the normal state, see, for example, you and me sitting in eyes closed state, we are not very proficient meditation practitioners. So in that case, alpha block occurs. Whereas in proficient meditators, no alpha block. No alpha block. That is what I wanted to mention. And so these are the alpha, like 8 to 12 hertz frequency, you can see. And then subsequently in 70s, if you look at the neural papers, it's mainly from the TM group, Mahesh Yogi's group, TM group. So they also, observed that there is a lot of integration happening in the brain. That is, all the brain oscillations are now becoming synchronized, becoming low wave oscillations. So they say that when the brain is now, integrated, nothing but you are very happy. So that means meditation can induce the state of happiness even in the beginning itself. Beginning stage of meditation itself, it can integrate brain functions, and you can you are more rather happy than anxious or anything. And we also in 1980s onwards, we have been also looking into the neural correlates of meditation. But like our studies, we have seen that some of the practitioners even show some behavioral advancement without any concomitant change in the brain activity. Okay, so these are also possible depending upon the technique of meditation. Okay, so that is how he has come up with this, that the ecstatic and blissful states need not to be accompanied by changes in brain activity. That's a dominance of mind over matter. like possibilities are there. That's what we are just trying to. So now there are many studies which have showed that it integrates various brain oscillations, and these brain oscillations are the unified cognitive operations which are associated with many cognitive functions. So you can see that because see, for example, theta gamma oscillations are associated with memory processes. So you see that meditation process enhance various aspects of cognitive processing. Okay. And
Madam, 1 minute. Can you go back to can you explain that yellow and dark regions of that?
Yeah. See, these are the, these are depending upon the power. See, for example, alpha, we measure the power, power spectral analysis. So the power, see, in this scale, now this is the highest power. So these areas are having highest power, whereas these the blue is the lowest power. So it is all just power distribution. Power is an indication of activity, neural activity. Yeah. Okay. And there are other methods we can, we can also study various aspects of cognitive, cognitive waves like P300 and all. There are many ways we can study these neural correlates of meditation. Okay. So these are the EEG power spectral, and these are different wave patterns. And in addition, so one way of looking at now meditation is looking at the functional aspects. The brain activity in terms of EEG, in terms of ERP, event related potential, you can study. So these are the neurophysiological methods, whereas these are the neuroimaging methods. So imaging, like there are studies like Sarah Laser et al. There are many studies. They have looked at the brain of very proficient meditators having more than 16 hours of 16 years of meditation practice, and I have observed that these meditators, their cortex, there is a cortical thickness of the cortex is increased. So that means the meditation can also induce various structural plasticity. The structure of the brain itself is changing, that is, so and also it is not that meditation induces an indiscriminate way of enhancing the structure. It is only certain structures which are associated with attention, interoception, sensory processing. It is only those areas which are, involved in higher mental functioning are showing enhanced thickness. So thickness in terms of, that is mainly because there are many morphological changes occurring in the brain structures, and thus the cortical thickness is increased. That can be studied using imaging studies. Okay. Even in addition to this cortical thickness, even the fiber tract integrity. Now you can see that many there are brain connectivity connections are there. All these fiber integrity is very high. So fiber tract integrity is also an index of information processing, high information processing. So the brain is now slowly changing, into that is what we say that it is a cognitive reserve. It enhances meditation process, enhance cognitive reserve capacity in the sense that it makes brain more resilient to activate all its connectivity and thus to carry out various cognitive functions. Okay, so these are possible, and also they can also undertake many different aspects of cognitive functions. So you see that now everything is accessible for the brain, like to utilize the brain circuitry and to mediate that particular function. Okay. Now I will just come to our studies. So in my department, my team, we are studying looking at the neurophysiology of meditation, and we are mainly looking at the meditation proficiency. So when we talk about meditation, you can be very automatic, and you can just sit and your mind can be wandering somewhere, and you are only in a sitting posture and you're doing meditation. So that can happen, or you can be very intensely, you are very actively involved in meditation processes and achieve your goals. So that means the meditation proficiency plays a major role in assessing your progress in meditation actually. So we wanted to study that. What is the state and trait effect of meditation and meditation proficiency? And we have been doing many, we have been studying Vipassana meditation for almost 20 years. Brahmakumari's Raja Yoga for the past 5 years. And
excuse me, trait in the sense as
trait is
by nature they.
Yeah, trait means, see, for example, now you have been doing meditation for a long time. We can see some permanent change. See, brain is highly plastic in nature, but still over that, with that background also you can see some permanent changes that is happening. See, for example, some changes in the brain power spectra or frequency like alpha oscillations during rest period you can see the changes, during meditation you can see the changes, while they are performing cognitive functions you can see the change, while you are sleeping you can see. So these are, some of them are trait changes, that is permanent changes. Some are state changes are just when you are performing a task you can see some specific changes. When you are meditating you can see some specific changes. So we have just looked at all these state and trait effect of meditation. And so these are why we have selected many, in the sense all these are different techniques, and it is not that single path they use. There are multiple paths this meditation. For example, Vipassana is an mindfulness, utilize a mindfulness technique, whereas Raja Yoga it is mainly of contemplative techniques. Isha Yoga it is a variant of Ashtanga Yoga. And heartfulness meditation they concentrate on the heart and thinking that the guru is transmitting the specific energy. So there are different ways of meditation, and we see that there are different ways, different aspects of changes in the mental functions. So for example, Vipassana meditation we have started since 2000. And as you know, they utilize mindfulness, and mindfulness meditation it is a mixture of many techniques you can see. For example, they start the meditation with Anapana, that is breath awareness of the breath, incoming and outgoing breath. Then that is continuous with Vipassana, that is the mindfulness. So in mindfulness they get to know about the awareness of sensations, realization of impermanence, and totally dissolution of the self that happens. And finally the meditation is end up with a Metta Bhavana. It is a goodwill, generating a goodwill to oneself as well as to others. So you see that mentally, they are in different states. Like these are all cognitively intense meditation, whereas Metta Bhavana is an emotionally intense meditation. So we thought, if this is the state of meditation, when you are doing meditation, there is no point in generalizing it. We have to study, we have to dissociate the EG changes associated with Anapana, Vipassana and Metta, and look at the EG, the dynamic changes that is happening. So this is what we have done it. And before doing that, what we have done, we have initially started with the sleep organization. And as you all know that sleep is very important for health, to maintain health and well-being. You know that even if one night sleep disturb your entire day's work, you will be confused, you will be tired, you will be anxious. So you see that your mental, your well-being is gone even if one night's sleep. So sleep is very important factor, that is very important to, a factor for assessing health as well as maintaining well-being and health. And sleep also, if you look at sleep also undergoes age associated changes. You can see that the quality of sleep as well as quantity of sleep changes as you age. So what we have done, we have just studied the sleep pattern. The whole night they have to come to our lab, they have to sleep in the lab. We put electrodes and we compute all this information and we study their sleep organization. So we keep, we are awake during night and they will be sleeping. So what we have seen, you see this is the structure we get when we compute all the, details about sleep. See, you only know that when you go to bed very tired, but the next day you get up fresh, but what are the neural mechanism that is happening. And sleep is actually a complex process. Sleep is not just a neural, it is not based on the neural mechanisms. You can see there are various hormones are involved in maintaining sleep. The circadian rhythm, your light dark nature, the circadian rhythm, the 24-hour light dark cycle is very important. Your day-to-day interaction, suppose if you are psychologically now, very upset, or if you are excited, your sleep changes, okay. And what we have observed is that they have a very good sleep organization, and this sleep organization is seen even in the old age. That is the best part of it. Even at the age of 60, 70, we see a proper sleep organization among the senior meditators. That also very important. Here, this study we have conducted with senior meditators having more than 7 years of practice. And this blue is the novice meditators. Novice meditators are just having less than 2 years of experience, whereas seniors have undergone various, like advanced courses. So they are advanced in their meditation proficiency when compared to novice. We have observed quite, we can see that, these some sleep stages are restorative in nature. We feel refreshed when you get up. So that is because it mediates various restorative processes. So we have seen that this restorative sleep stage, that is slow wave sleep, is high among the senior meditators when compared to the novice. And these are the controls. And we didn't see much difference between the novice and the normal control, non-meditators. And we also saw this REM sleep. REM sleep, at least you would have heard the terminology REM sleep. REM sleep is the dream state. So you usually dream in this particular state of sleep. So we have observed there is enhanced slow wave sleep and enhanced REM sleep. And also there is reduced intermittent awakenings. We awake, sometimes we wake for 2 minutes, micro sleep, micro wake states. There are many micro wake states. So we just compute all this. We have seen that in the senior meditators, there is a reduced wakeful. So that means that there is a perfect sleep organization among them. And this talks volumes about the health, actually.
What was N2 in the previous slide?
N2, see, I am not talking all the details of the sleep. N2 is a lighter sleep state. Actually, we spend almost 50%, more than 50% in the N2 state. See, this is the state 2. Okay. Whereas these black bars are the REM sleep states. And 3 and 4, we call it as slow wave sleep, So I'm not going into the details, but I'm just giving you the important points from our study.
These meditators are from one tradition.
Yeah, these are all only Vipassana meditators.
I also have one question. So the meditators, when you did the study, was it a normal day for them, or did they meditate before sleeping, or any?
No, they have, these are all ladies, we call it as. They are not monks. They are the normal, ordinary people like us, having family. They will be professionals. They will be going for their work. They will come back. They have their normal routine. Only thing is, during night they come to our sleep lab, and these are all participants from all over the country. So they will come to our lab. Our campus. We provide them accommodation. We provide them the food. So even the food is taken care of, actually.
So do you have a protocol for the people who, like, within the duration of your study? Do they practice for a certain amount of hours?
No, we don't.
Or at a certain time?
No, they have their routine. See, so for example, they get up and they almost spend 4 hours in meditation, seniors. That is there. We don't alter anything. We only just allow them to sleep in our lab rather than sleeping in their house. That's all.
Ma'am, usually it is believed that whatever surroundings we are in daily life, we feel safest there.
Yeah.
So for especially these people, when we are bringing them to the
Lab,
university, does that create any effects on the research? And if yes, how do you avoid them?
And no, see, sleep research, certain criteria we have to follow. I am not telling all this. See, for example, the first night we don't take. First night is an adaptation night. So they adapt to the night. So second day is recording we take. Okay, we have taken care of all this. I'm just, because I thought I will just convey many things what we are doing here in this, the gist of what meditation does on, your physiology. Otherwise, if any doubts are there, I can clear later, okay, please. We have taken care of, because sleep research, this is mandatory, that you have to have 2 nights sleep or 3 nights sleep. We have even done 4 nights sleep, depending upon the criteria, what is your objectives. Then we have also looked at, see, for example, I told you slow wave sleep. So slow wave sleep itself is the brain activity becomes slow, actually. There is a, from during wake you have an EEG desynchronization, whereas during sleep you have an EEG synchronization. So this synchrony is happening because of these, dynamics. We call it as delta and sigma dynamics, delta spindle dynamics. So spindle densities, spindle genesis, you can see that this is a scalp, this yellow thing. You can see that all over the whole brain, the spindles are generated. And this spindle genesis depends upon your need for sleep. Okay, whereas you see the meditators, not much of spindle genesis happening, but still they are able to, have a proper sleep organization when compared to the control. So here these things we talk in terms of energy expenditure. Even with less spindle genesis, they are able to produce enhanced delta. Delta oscillations are very important. The brain waves are very high, 100 millivolt. High waves. So for generation of this high millivolt, high waves, you have to have spindle. So you see that meditators, they are producing less spindle, but in effect you can see the full blown delta genesis, as well as formation, production of proper sleep, slow wave sleep. So there are various, so these are all in, we call it as thalamocortical mechanism, the hardcore neurophysiology, mechanisms. But still we see that meditators, there are differences in the neurophysiological mechanisms. But still, you are in a position to have a proper sleep organization. And we have also studied the REM sleep in detail. And REM sleep, many aspects of neuroplasticity one can study. I'm not going into the details because of the want of time, but we have studied the details of REM duration, REM frequency, enhanced REM activity. REM activity means, you can see the rapid eye movement activity during REM sleep. That is why it is called as REM sleep. Okay, and this rapid eye movement activity tells so many things about the neuroplasticity event that is happening. So we have seen that these senior meditators, they have enhanced REM activity, and that it can be an indication of neuroplasticity, as other studies have already showed that this could be due to lucid dreaming activity. It could be due to other brain activities associated with plasticity, various plasticity, especially memory consolidation and all, because memory consolidation usually takes place in the night during sleep, and the same sleep events, what they are indulging in, is also essential for memory consolidation. So, these studies help us to understand that meditation enhances sleep organization. And also we have also done some correlation study and to see that, usually I have told you that during aging, there is an decreased sleep quality because of the enhanced wakefulness. Whereas in meditators showed less wakefulness when compared to the normal control. Sleep efficiency is still enhanced among the meditators, as well as the sleep duration. Sleep duration comes down as the age advances. So you can even qualitatively, you can see that, meditation takes care of all these qualitative aspects to ensure a proper sleep organization. And this is actually, I can tell you that this is one of the important studies that has been carried out. Like before us, only one study was available from the TM group. But still they have not studied the entire, whole night polysomnography. But they say that, if the sleep is associated with enhanced theta alpha and delta, decreased EMG activity, enhanced slow wave sleep, enhanced REM density, that is an indication of a stabilized and evolved higher mental state. So we have also observed such things, but we are looking into various aspects to prove this. I will not be able to tell you anything, but there are studies to show that these are indications of higher mental states. Like they explain one higher state of consciousness, like transcendental consciousness. These are highly restful, deeply alert in a state of wakefulness without any object and thought of these things or perception. So they say that this advanced meditation, during sleep you can study this the stability, of enhanced consciousness. And sleep study we have extended even to look at various aspects. As I have mentioned that sleep is a complex behavioral state. So we have also looked at the melatonin level, because meditation enhances melatonin. There are many studies, even our study we have observed that melatonin and DHEA levels, these are hormones, and these are having varied biological functions. You can see that it enhances, it is very important for maintaining the sleep organization. Not only that, it has got various other psychophysiological and cognitive functions like reduce anxiety, improve coping skill, enhance positive mood, enhance overall quality of life. So you see that these are all some of the general perspectives. Whether it is a Vipassana meditation, whether or any other meditation, these things, there are some commonalities that meditation enhances various aspects of feel-good hormones. So dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, melatonin, DHEA, these are all feel good hormones, and when you meditate, that is enhanced, and that takes care of your mood actually for the whole day. So we have seen that these are enhanced in the meditators. And this is this is not from our study. Like there are studies to show that it increase the dopamine tone during meditation and change of consciousness. So there are many chemical substances are released, and these play a major role in even changing the state of consciousness. We have also looked at the cardiovascular functions during meditation, because cardiovascular events undergo changes during different states of sleep. So during the slow wave sleep state, you can see that there is it is a parasympathetically predominant, whereas during REM sleep it is a sympathetically predominant. But what we have seen is there is an overall predominance of parasympathetic activity, and parasympathetic activity is an index of relaxation, deep relaxation. So we have seen many changes, not only at the brain level, even at the hormone level, at the cardiovascular function level. We have observed various changes. So these studies are going on, but we have moved from the sleep studies. We have also looked at now, we wanted to dissociate the EEG changes associated with meditation. This also we have studied in Vipassana meditators, and we were able to, it was so interesting to see that we were able to dissociate the EEG dynamics during different meditative state. That is, for example, during Anapana, during Vipassana, during Metta. So you see that when if you are mental, if you are cognitively intense, you have a certain brain state. If you are emotionally intense, your brain state is totally different. So we were lucky enough to dissociate these, and what we have. And we have used here, different meditation practitioners of different proficiency, novice practitioners, senior practitioners, and even teachers. So teachers and seniors, actually, they have got more than 10,000 hours of meditation proficiency, but still you can see the distinction between the teachers and seniors, because teachers are teachers. They are they are voluntarily, they come to the center and teach meditation for the beginners. And this is a kind of voluntary act. We consider it as a kind of selflessness. So, there is a transformation of from a selfishness to selflessness happening. And they get more exposure to the theoretical underpinning of the, of the meditation practice itself. And also, they get more, frequent training programs. So, proficiency wise, they are more proficient than the seniors. So we see that distinction even in our study. These are the studies we have carried out. We just looked at the power spectra, that is just the power, and the power is an indication of brain activity. And I will just summarize what are the changes what we have observed. We have seen a global enhancement of power, that shows that Vipassana meditation technique induces distinct states of consciousness. There is a total change in power, whether they are novice or the senior advanced meditators. That is one thing. Then we see distinct trait and state changes. That is very interesting. For example, teachers, trait effects we have seen only in the advanced meditators. That is the permanent change. Whereas state effects we have seen both advanced as well as the novice, but with different neural activity. And this is one of the study we are also looking into the brain connectivity analysis. So we say that brain, meditation enhances brain connectivity. And this brain connectivity in terms of functional connectivity, for example, these are, alpha frequency EEG waves. We have seen that teachers have enhanced connectivity when compared to the novice. These are all, representations. It is not an average. It is not a study we have completed. These are all going on. So, but still we could see the distinctions between the proficient meditators and the novice meditators. And the trait effect, what we have observed among the teachers are, it's a kind of theta alpha, 6 to 10 hertz. 6 to 10 hertz we see across all states, like rest, meditation, sleep. So these are the neuroplastic changes that is associated with these are the permanent changes what we see. And what it means, see, for example, when we record from a proficient meditator and we see this kind of theta alpha is an indication of sustained attention and awareness, positive emotion, feeling of happiness and bliss. There are many studies to prove that these are associated with these mental attributes, and also decrease self-referential processing. For example, when you are not a meditator, now you are simply sitting quiet, what will happen? Your mind wanders. Mind wandering is an example of self-referential processing. You can see some of the brain network will be active, whereas during meditation and when you become proficient, there is a decrease in mind wandering and there is a decrease in the self-referential processing. So if you are seeing a theta alpha, that means it is an index of meditation proficiency. So you see that we are now able to segregate these brain changes, activity changes associated with the meditation. State effects also, we could see that enhanced alpha alone during Anapana Vipassana. I told you Anapana and Vipassana are cognitively intense state of mind, whereas enhanced theta is during generating goodwill. So theta is associated with enhancement of purposeful attentional engagement, mental quiescence and emotion regulation. So you see that now you are able to segregate the mental activity or brain activity with related to your mental processes. Alpha is a sustained attention, and during alpha what happens? Alpha is an indication, we call it as alpha gating. That is, when alpha is there, that means when the subject is meditating, there is enhanced alpha. Alpha is an indication that they are now indulged in meditation process, and it prevents the sensory processing of all sensory information. It blocks all information. And whereas theta is is mainly for mental quiescence, emotion regulation. So, whereas novice, you see that there is enhanced delta as well as enhanced low gamma we saw. So, these are all indications of internally engaged effortful state of consciousness. So, that means they are not mentally adept, like they still need to have more practice to be adept in meditation. So, their meditation process are very, they are actively involved, mind is actively engaged. That is why there is enhancement of gamma, whereas the proficient practitioners effortlessly they are able to practice meditation and with enhanced theta alpha, enhanced alpha depending upon the state of mind, or enhanced theta. So you see that we are able to. So there are many studies to substantiate our findings. Like this is one of the important study. In the literature, again they have also observed focus. This is actually a Sahaja Yoga meditation practice also. They were able to observe this kind of theta synchrony, long-term theta synchrony, and which has been correlated with positive blissful experience as well as internalized attention. So now you see we have methods, we have very sensitive measures to understand the brain activity associated with meditation proficiency, and these are all only proficient meditators you see, whereas in the shorter meditators we are not able to see these kind of plastic changes. The same way even Buddhist meditation.
In the earlier slide, how does the short-term meditators compare with someone with no meditation experience? Is it the same?
This is not my study actually. I'm just giving you examples actually. Okay. Same Buddhist meditation also, they have observed enhanced gamma activity, especially during metta. So it's an enhancement of moment-to-moment awareness associated meditation. So you see that we are able to dissociate the EEG changes according to the functions of the brain. We have also studied the cognitive abilities in these meditators. It's the same meditators, almost we have studied around 67 meditators and divided into these teachers, seniors and novices. And here also we could distinguish this EEG dynamicity, according to meditation proficiency. Do I have to go into details of all these? How many minutes I have? How long I can talk? 10 more minutes. No? Yeah.
10 more minutes, but in case we want to have a
discussion, then you can
Yeah.
wrap it up.
We see that this is the cognitive potential. So suppose you are asked to perform a task in the lab. They are performing a task. We are recording the cognitive potential. These are called as P300. That is around 300 millisecond you get a wave pattern. And we studied, we didn't see much differences across novice or seniors or advanced practitioners because they are very adaptive. These techniques are very simple. Whereas we have observed certain, changes in EG power among the teachers from that of the novice. Like you can see these blue bands. The blue bands are the disappearance of alpha. Whereas I told you that the advanced meditator, there is an enhanced alpha during meditation. Whereas there is an alpha desynchrony. So that means when you are meditating, the cortex shows that there is enhanced alpha. It will not now process any of the sensory information during meditation. Whereas now you have to divert your attention, perform a task. There is a total disintegration of the alpha. So these are all happening only among the senior meditators. It is not happening in the novice meditators. So once again you see that the subtle neuroplastic changes we are able to capture through these kind of studies. Like teachers showed enhanced alpha desynchrony and reduced theta synchrony. That is an indication of ability to self-regulate and perform the task effortlessly. Whereas novice, greater theta power enhancement and maybe to achieve greater phase alignment towards greater performance and better. So, one is effortfully doing the task to get a proper P300, whereas the other one is doing with effortlessly able to. So there are many studies like this. This is a study from Railkhan. They have also contributed a lot in our understanding about the Vipassana meditation. So they have used various stimuli like distractor stimuli. But even if you are meditating, you will not get distracted by these stimuli. You can see that the wave pattern, the P300 is during meditation is reduced. That means disengagement of, they will not just give any attention to these relevant stimuli, and they will be just focusing on this attention and cognitive during meditation. Okay, so you see that mentally adapt as well as even the adaptness we are able to see even electrophysiologically in the brain activities itself. This is one of our study, just a minute meditation. Rapid voluntary conscious state shift in long-term meditators. This we have carried out in Brahma Kumaris. So if you look at the Brahma Kumaris tradition, anybody is there Brahma Kumaris practicing Brahma Kumaris meditation? So Brahma Kumaris meditation, you have something called traffic control meditation. This traffic control meditation is a 1 minute meditation you do with the eyes open state while you are engaged in your activity, day-to-day activity. So you are totally involved in that. You just wanted to get refreshment, you do this 1 minute meditation. Okay, so this is called as traffic control meditation. So what we have done, we have just practiced, did the same thing. So that means this is just to study the adaptness, mental adaptness. You are taking rest, then entering into that 1 minute meditation state, then again coming out of that meditation state. And what we have observed again, the long-term practitioners. So we have the long-term, the terminologies are different. We are using different, like in this case it is long-term practitioner and short-term practitioners and zero-term. Zero-term is the control, non-meditating control. What we have observed is these very efficient meditators, proficient meditators, they were able to shift state with a concomitant change in the EEG activity, a theta activity during that 1 minute meditation, only during that meditation. Then they can go back to rest. Whereas senior STP also did some with kind of lower alpha. Lower alpha is actually an indication of you are a beginner. Actually, whereas theta is an adaptness. Theta shows adaptness. So you can see that. See, for example, these are the long-term meditators. This is the rest condition. This is the eyes open rest, meditation state. Eyes closed rest, meditation state. There is not much carryover here. You can see that they can enter into that particular state and come out. Whereas you see the STPs, they are continuing in the meditation state even though it is a rest period. So they are not able to come out of meditation with that adaptness. Okay, so we could really study these variations in the brain activity associated with their mental adaptness. Yeah. Now, so there are many studies, mainly EEG power spectral studies are more or less convincing. Whereas now this is the area now most of the neuroscientists are going just to study the neurocircuitry of various, mental attributes like emotion, regulation, compassion, generosity. So we have brain areas associated with all these compassion, like meditation or circuitry. So when you are adapting now meditation, and when you are now asked, to distinguish some of the, this is a laboratory test situation where you are presented with certain voices, distress calls, various human distress calls. So if it is a distress call, you can see that some of the areas are intensely active, okay, whereas in a normal voice they are not active. So you see the sensitivity of these areas which are associated with emotion regulation, compassion, generosity, and so on. So now like neuroscience is moving to understand various behavioral correlates of the brains associated with this. We have also carried out a study using Brahmakumaris again on the well-being studies. So well-being, for example, well-being, you can see that well-being is a construct. Well-being is a construct. We generate this from the real things like good qualities in life from different perspective of life. See, for example, state of well-being in a different context you can interpret in a different way. For example, subjective well-being. Subjective well-being can be just a state of happiness, whereas psychological well-being, meaning in life, these are all totally different. That shows your journey in the meditation. Towards spirituality, like self-discovery, self-development. So now, if you have appropriate subjective indices, we have used various questionnaires, and what we have done, we have taken a very huge cohort study including more than 1,000 meditators, and then we have applied these questionnaires, and what we have observed is that well-being is correlated with meditation proficiency. So this is very important, message. It is not the duration of the meditation. It is not the the well-being is not correlated with the duration. Even the proficiency, proficiency as well as well-being is not correlated with meditation duration actually, whereas the well-being is correlated with the meditation proficiency. So even if the long-term and we are now anyway using these terminologies based on their proficiency only. Otherwise, we will not be able to use such terminologies, so we have studied this. It is one of the good study actually. I feel that we have to conduct such studies in different schools of meditation, so that we can come up with a map the entire behavioral, advancement associated with meditation.
How was proficiency measured?
Proficiency measured. We have used various well-being questionnaires, and there the grading is there. So accordingly, we compute all these, and we have used the.
So that is the well-being part. The meditation.
Meditation proficiency, I forgot to tell you. Meditation proficiency, we have used proficiency in spiritual study, spiritual lifestyle. See, Brahmakumaris, they have a wing called as SPARC, that is Spiritual Application Research Center. So these people, their job is to produce, to make questionnaires to assess proficiency. So we have used that.
So this is questionnaire based study.
Yes, questionnaire based study. So coming to a conclusion.
This proficiency measures, they are specific to a certain tradition.
Yes, yeah. Even Vipassana also we have actually done it. I am not showing that result. From the Abhidhamma Buddhist philosophy, we have taken the questionnaires and we have looked at the proficiency actually. So coming to, this is our hypothesis that when you are interacted into meditation, there are certain changes that is happening that makes you be positive and reduce negativity and all. But it is a long-term meditation practice that leads to development of mental attributes. So that is, there are neural network properties are changing, enhanced resilience, enhanced network processing, cognitive flexibility, sleep organization. You see that. So if such things are there, definitely, maybe, possibilities are there. This can be studied separately using very sensitive indices. It is not only the questionnaire, we have to develop various sensitive indices to see that these meditation provisions lead to heightened sense of well-being, cultivation of altruistic behavior, empathy, compassion, all various higher mental attributes. So now if you look at now consciousness, so from a neurophysiological point of view, we say that we all of us have this basic consciousness. We are very aware of ourselves. We can feel the sensations, thoughts, everything. But this is within the basic level of consciousness. But even with the neuroplasticity and cognitive reserve capacities, you have the possibility to expand your consciousness. And even what you say that, for example, in this case, even if in the normal, human beings, we also have the ability, you see that we also have the ability to enter into higher state of consciousness. We will be also able to assess the content of consciousness at times. See, for example, if you are involved in intense some cognitive studies or emotion, you are able to be aware of that particular state of consciousness. So that means you have the provision to enter into higher state of consciousness, but very little time. It is not sustainable. You can see that it will come back. We will come back to basic consciousness. Whereas in the case of meditators, I feel that as a kind of trait effect, they are able to maintain a higher consciousness state. They are able to experience the content of consciousness in a better way. And there are studies. Now we have various tools to understand the cognitive flexibility, creativity, positive mindset, enhanced resilience, and also the behavioral altruism, compassion. So we are advancing, neuroscientists are also advancing in our research to understand various aspects of meditation, mind, the relationship between these, plus what you say that the mental virtues. But definitely we are yet to develop many sensitive tools to understand these aspects in a much better way. I'll end up my talk with this saying from Patanjali. Whatever we are doing, he has already envisaged and put it thousands of years back. Like, it is so interesting and so apt to end up my talk. When you are inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all of your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind transcends limitations. Your consciousness expands in every direction, and you find yourself in a new, great and wonderful world. Dormant forces, faculties and talents become alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person than you ever dreamed yourself to be. So this is what I wanted to convey through my talk. Thank you. And this is my team, research team, my students whose work I have presented, and my collaborators and the funding.